Welcome to the Highlander podcast. My name's Scott, and today I'm joined by Andy Mcbride, who has been investing in Bitcoin for some time. And he got in touch with me after watching my previous episode with Trish talking about a cashless society. So, Andy, you've been investing in Bitcoin and crypto for some time. Would you like to start off with how you started and who created Bitcoin, maybe, and how you got into it?
Sure, yeah. First of all, thanks, Scott, for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem.
For myself, personally, I was always involved in the likes of the Forex trading, just buying and selling normal currencies. Then I came across cryptocurrencies. I knew about it from years and years ago, but it's just like anything. It's nothing. It was Bitcoin. Sure, you don't actually own anything. What is the point? It doesn't mean anything to anybody. But it took off over the years. Like back in 2013, if you had bought Bitcoin back then, you'd be doing quite well right now. You'd be a millionaire right now, in fact, if you had bought enough back then when it first started taking off. So that's what got me into it. Over the past 2 years, I've really started to delve into it more, try and understand the concept behind it, and then basically just start to get involved. There's lots of groups online where you can start to learn more, you can start to understand more. And to be honest with you, Bitcoin was the first, but it's not anything I've actually ever invested in. I've never actually bought Bitcoin or traded Bitcoin. There's numerous other coins out there that you can actually trade, you can buy, you can invest in, that do actually bring in more rewards, if you like, for that sort of a terminology, that you can earn more money from. Bitcoin was the first, and it showed what could be done within the industry. There are other ones that have been created since then. So yes, this is what I do now full time.
Okay.
And the point is, it's there for anybody. Anybody can get involved in it. It's not just you need to have a bit more of an understanding about it, start to learn more about it, and start to try and get a hold of the terminologies and what each one are, because it can be quite a learning curve when you first start to get involved in it. But it is there for anybody to get involved in.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I want to get you on as well, because we obviously exchanged messages, and I think that is there is a lack of understanding on cryptocurrencies and the whole blockchain, decentralized, centralized, so are you happy to explain what the difference is between centralized currency and decentralized currency?
Correct, yeah. The minute that you have, right, with centralized, I think we can understand what we've seen over the past so many years, especially over the 2 years when you talk about a centralized economy or government. It's all the same idea. If you can go back to 2010, where you got a centralized economy with the likes of PayPal, whenever they shut down WikiLeaks, they just cancel. There's no more money going to them. Then we see what happened with coronavirus, basically where you have the government can just tell you can't leave your house. That's a centralized control. One person can tell you what government or what premises can open, what can't. Then you look what happened in Canada, where they just shut down bank accounts. People couldn't even get their food. There's stories with single parents who happened to donate to this here, and all of a sudden their bank accounts were shut down. That's centralized control. One organization is determining what happens with your funds, where they go, where they don't go. What we have within cryptocurrencies is it is completely decentralized. This is where you need to start trying to understand a bit more of what the blockchain is. For instance, the blockchain as a whole, there's thousands of computers all around the world. To use Bitcoin as an example in this scenario, Bitcoin has about 10,000 servers around the world, all over the globe. And on them is called a node. On the node is a certain bit of software that will run the currencies through it. So for whenever I go to send a currency from myself to you, basically, it goes through all these different servers that verify it. Not one person has control over it. Not a group has control over it. It takes 51% of all of the servers to make a change, because it is modified. New technology comes out, they need to upgrade it a bit, make it a bit faster, what have you. But no one group, no one country, no one organization to decide we want to do this with the blockchain. It has to be a consensus, so it has to be 51%. On the XRP ledger, it takes 80% of the users to decide that they're going to put a change through or not. I can say I want to do something to the XRP ledger, which is the blockchain, because There's different protocols, XRP Ledger, you've got the Ethereum, and you've got blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain. They all run on their own protocols. But for anybody to make a change, it has to be a consensus. And this is the difference between the banking structure that we have now and the blockchain. No one person controls. It's controlled by everybody who has invested in a computer and who runs a node on it. And that's the main difference. Nobody can shut you down. We did see with Bitcoin there last year, China just stopped all mining. So all the miners within, because of the energy consumption, and also they were doing their own digital yen, but they just shut it down. So all the servers up and went to America, but it didn't stop the network. The network continued on. People are still buying, still trading, they're still sending money around the world, the currencies. So it didn't shut anything down because one whole country decided no. So this is the
Yeah, so sorry, yeah, just because China tried to censor it, it still continued. But you're talking because it's a worldwide thing. Is that what you mean? Or
yes. Well, sorry, you broke up there slightly.
Sorry, I was just saying China obviously censored Bitcoin, but because it was a worldwide thing, it continued anyway. Is that what you mean?
Okay, we'll go back a bit to just understand more about the blockchain itself as such. On the blockchain, if I go to the whole point of Bitcoin originally was to solve a problem. It was to solve an issue of how do I send digital currency across the internet. So the problem is, like when it's digital, you can copy it. This video, for instance, once you're finished with it, you're going to upload it. Somebody can copy it and they can distribute it all around the world as often as they want. So you've got multiple copies of the exact same thing. But what Bitcoin, the inventor of Bitcoin originally was, he solved this problem so that you couldn't copy the same amount. It was the double spend. For instance, I go into Asda or any other brand, and I hand over £10 or £1 coin. I can only spend that once because I physically have it and I'm handing it over to them. That's it gone. But when it came to digital, how do you stop somebody from sending the same money 2 or 3 times to somebody without copying it? They tried it back in the 1980s. You had eCash. It didn't do very well because the problem with eCash was it still had to go through a centralised authority. It had to go through a bank to verify that that digital currency hadn't already been spent somewhere else. So it still had to go through this. Now, what the inventor of Bitcoin solved was that problem. Now, what they done was that on every single server around the world, there is a digital ledger, a digital register of every transaction that has ever happened within Bitcoin. So if I go to send you Bitcoin now, for instance, on the blockchain, there is like a spreadsheet, if you like, on every single computer that can transfer a Bitcoin. It checks to make sure that what I have in my account and what I'm sending to you matches. And as soon as they got a consensus, it then gets sent. So I can't lie. I can't try to send you 10 when I only have 5. So that verifies that process. So this was the problem that was being solved in the first place. Did you understand that?
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's basically like it is almost like the ledger you mentioned there. It's almost like a record of transaction, but without actually showing who's buying and selling from who. So,
correct.
Is that correct? Yeah.
So whenever you have 2 things, right? You have a public key and you have a private key. The public key is what I would give to you. For instance, it's like my email address. I give you my email address, then you can send me an email. But you can't access my emails because I have a private my password. Well, it's the same thing on the ledger. And the ledger is completely open sourced. You know, I can go in and look at any transactions now, and I can follow those transactions all around the world. But I have no idea who owns it. It's just a random letters and numbers because that is their key to their public address. So you can see that. And that's the lovely thing about it. So if I send you money now, which I can send directly, and you receive it instantaneously, then you can then verify who it was sent from because everything is open sourced. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is kept in the darkness or anything. Everything is open for everybody to see. And that was the beautiful thing about it, that allowed that to happen that way.
So I'm guessing if it's obviously decentralized, if you're to receive or send Bitcoin, I'm guessing, is there some sort of platform you use to do that, or it's obviously not through your bank?
It's not that And this is the other nice thing, is it doesn't go through any third parties. It is completely separate from the banking structure. For instance, this goes way back, and this is the main thing around cryptocurrencies as such. I'll give you two quotes from two Nobel Prize of Economics. One was in 1999 by Milford Friedman, and he himself said, an electric cash was needed for the newly found internet and was also a logical tool for limiting government overreach. Something to have out of their control. So as we can then, I can interact with you, I can buy and sell. When it's within the government's hands, you can see what happens with cash right now. It just gets inflated. Just keep printing and printing and printing. Cryptocurrencies right now, this is Bitcoin. They can only ever be 21 million. That's it. There's no more. It can be made again. So it can't be inflated into whatever, and then it becomes devalued to nothing. This is the reason why there's so much value in it, because there's only so much. You then have another Nobel Prize winner as well. He said in 1984, this is Friedrich Hayek, I don't believe we shall ever have good monies again before we take the thing out of the hands of government. All we can do is by some sly roundabout way introduce something that they can't stop. And this is the basis behind cryptocurrencies. This is in the control of our hands. We are the ones that have created it. We're the ones that set up the platforms in order how to trade it, how to buy it. There's even decentralized exchanges where you can swap currencies around. There's so many means within this now for the likes of you and me to actually transform our lives, to be free, of the wages that we're getting now, just keep us down here. We can't get any higher. We might make enough to get a holiday this year. We might save up 2 years and buy ourselves a car the next year. We're never getting above. Cryptocurrencies give everybody the means to be, financially free from what we have been living for so far. And I understand the fear behind it. The fear is just not the understanding of what freedom it can bring people. And yes, we have a lot of CBDC talk in the background and about government control that comes over the top of it. And we need to make sure that doesn't happen. And also cashless. No, we don't need a cashless society. You'll always have to want that, But what may come into our country, is going to come, is CBDCs. And the governments will make up a separate protocol that runs within our own country that will be completely centralized. It won't be decentralized. They'll control it. They'll see. But what they put on top of that, in order to see what we're spending on, and they'll use different excuses, for instance, to stop money laundering or to understand infrastructure, what we're spending our money on, so whatever reasons they want to use. But what they set in that is just like an app. It's like your ISO or your Android, for instance. Anybody can build an app and they can set it on top of it. That's what watches what we do if it comes to that point. But out of that system, what we all use ourselves now is completely free of the governments, completely free of the banking system, the financial system. It's completely free of all that.
So, obviously, you mentioned there that CBDCs are obviously inevitably coming in the government. That's the direction they're heading. But do you see Bitcoin, because that ultimately is a cashless society, do you see it the best of a sort of bad bunch? Do you see it the better of two evils, if you like, or how do you see it?
With Bitcoin, or what do you mean, or the CBDC?
Yeah, like Bitcoin, because it's decentralized, although it's still cashless. It's
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever really get the fully cashless society. I know that might be a push and a drive. I just don't know how. And especially from the interview last week with Trish, I've thought about that myself. I spoke to you about that in our own instant, because I know myself. What I do here, I've actually had to do a how-to guide for my wife. If anything ever happened to me, how to actually just get the money, because it's not the same as going to the bank. So I can get that. But I don't think we'll ever get to a fully cashless society. I don't know. I know, yes, if it went there, well then obviously we still need to have our own independence. So that's where the cryptocurrency side comes from, separate from CBDCs, where we can trade and buy and sell, separate from the government. Because whenever they control your money and what you do with it, then what do you have? And this is where the freedom comes from, outside of the system. We're not through the banks. We're not watching everything you're doing. Now, yes, you have to, if I need to take profit from the trading side, it still has to go through the bank in order to get into fiat. That will always be the case. Well, not necessarily. There are apps now. There are There's a whole industry springing up now. It's called decentralised finance. There's companies now that are creating means of just using your crypto on your wallet, and you can go, or on your phone, you can go in and pay for things in shops with it. It will do the transformation there for you straight away.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also what the cryptocurrency gives another side to. There's so many people in the world that don't have access to banks. They're too far away, but they have a mobile phone. So they can download whatever app they want to. They can send money around the world instantaneously without going through banks, without KYC, know you're a customer. You have to go in with your bank details and your passport. People can do this all around the world now, and they can make good money from it. There's people now, yes, there's people that are making loads of money and they're becoming millionaires. People are doing nice. They've retired from their jobs. They're living at home. They're comfortable. They can live the life they want to live by what cryptocurrencies and what this side of the world has given them.
So in terms of actually using Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, what can you actually do? Like, I can't just walk into Tesco's and just say, pay for my shopping with Bitcoin. So where can we actually use it?
Where we're at in this process now is it's been speculation. It has been speculation for the past so many years. We've been involved in it. We can see the paperwork around the world. We can see the banks signed up to it. The businesses are signed up to it. For instance, Telsa, you can buy your cars in Telsa using Bitcoin. You can go online, and there is quite a few companies around the world that you actually can go in and just buy cars, using Bitcoin. So there are people that are trading it. But now what's happening is that the rest of the industry are starting to catch up. They're starting to realize now, okay, there's a new currency starting here, and people are starting to get more involved in it. How can we get our cut of it? So there are companies now that are starting to create this so as you can. XDC, for instance, they're now going to probably be the ones to interact with your shop. So you will be able to go in, they'll have an app the same way as you would just a normal card, and you can go in and pay for it using their currency. This is all coming up. We're moving from the speculation stage now into the utility stage, because it is becoming mass adoption now. So what can it physically be used for? Now, what side that happens with the government's I'm not 100% too sure where that's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to sound negative with the whole Bitcoin thing, but it's just, or cryptocurrency, I just keep referring to Bitcoin, but, because it is digital, what is to stop the government actually putting like legislation or anything like that in place to stop places using it, and ultimately just using, for instance, the proposed Bitcoin or whatever they're discussing at that, like the particular time?
Well, at the minute, what stops them doing it? Right now, there isn't much legislation around anyway. They're trying to catch up. At the minute, for instance, tax benefits or for tax reasons, we would be classified like stocks and shares. They're trying to catch up because it's quite nuanced. There's certain things that we can make money in different ways you don't get in tax. So they're trying to catch up on this as such. How exactly they would stop you from using it, I have no idea. They might not be allowed to use it in shops because it's completely centralized. They can't control it. So, for instance, right now it's not it's not legal tender in any shops, but we can make money online now by buying and selling. There's numerous ways of basically using your cryptocurrencies. Right now, I am my own bank. I go onto exchanges, or I go into decentralized exchanges. I put two currencies in at once. I'm supplying liquidity, so I get money for every time somebody buys and sells using my cryptocurrencies. Or you can lend, you can borrow, you can make money that way the same way. But either way, I then sell that for fiat, and it's the fiat that I put back in my bank. I'm not actually using cryptocurrencies this current time in shops. And this is the point. At some stage, it might come to this. But right now, we all have a possibility of making something real for each one of ourselves here now, that you can actually make good money from it now. And yes, I don't know how they're going to interact with the main businesses at some stage, but they will do. And I don't see how the government can stop it as such. They can't stop you using it, but they might limit the amount you can use within shops within their own country. But it still doesn't stop you from making real money using it now, and then exchanging that cryptocurrency for our cash and spending it. That they couldn't stop doing.
I mean, there's the part of me that thinks it's very much like the internet right now, that you see loads of censorship on Twitter and Facebook, and they're really clamped down. You've got this online safety bill coming through, and it's almost like they've pretty much sucked us into a position where we need the internet, and we all use social media for, whether it just be socializing or sometimes it's work purposes. There's business pages and things like that. And I can't help thinking that they possibly are lulling us into a false sense of security with cryptocurrency as well. It's I don't know who created cryptocurrency. I know that I've read things about eCash and things like that. But it's almost like if enough people start using it, and then they just start clamping down and tightening the screw, and putting, as I said earlier on, like legislation and things on it, and then it's it's almost, you could say, censored in a way itself.
Mm-hmm. You see, the only part where cryptocurrency first came from, as you said, you read about eCash. Satoshi Nakamoto, he was the one that first created it. We don't know who he is. We don't know it was a group of people. We don't know how many there was, and that was back in 2008. But what that done was, it's the decentralized matter of it. You can't control. Right now, like, I could be trading, I can trade anywhere in the world. I could go live in America and trade just the same. I could go live in Australia and trade just the same. No one country controls exactly what happens with that cryptocurrency. And because it's blockchain, there's 10,000 computers all around the world. You can't if you shut down a whole country, for instance, it still can trade around the world. So you can still trade. They can, okay, they might be able to tax my profits more, but in order to shut it down as such, it's impossible. When there's you've got a computer, a mobile phone, that's you. They've actually now starting to put nodes, so as you can actually process the cryptocurrencies that's on the blockchain on your mobile phone. So we're actually now creating it for your phone. So mobile phones are now able to process the currency as well. It's becoming bigger and bigger. It's not getting any smaller. So in order for them to do it, every country in the world would have to come together. And look what's happening now with Ukraine. How many countries are all backing? It's completely split. You've got Turkey doing their own thing. You've got the West doing one side. So we can't even agree on something like that. Never mind something as big as this. So they could never shut it down, or they can try and censor it. For instance, you've got different projects now springing up. For instance, DTube. DTube is a decentralized YouTube. So no one entity controls that. Now it comes with this other side as well, because there's no censorship on it. Then what are you going to get to put up onto it? And what makes the videos move up and down the top is just people voting for it. It's not YouTube. You, for instance, if I was viewing your video now, you get paid in cryptocurrencies. It's completely decentralized. No one organization can control what goes on to it. So this is what's happened with it now. So it's not just the currencies. And the whole internet is going to go blockchain. Everything's going to go that way. Web 1 was connecting businesses. Web 2 was connecting people. Now Web 3 is connecting value of money. And this is where we're going to. We just moved from the internet of information to the internet of value now. How you can transfer money around the world. The government can't stop that now, because we created it. And it's now out in the masses. There's individuals and companies springing up all the time creating new ways of doing this. Now what they're going to try and do is, how can they get their money out of it? How can they tax us more? How can they regulate it so they get as much more? Shutting it down wouldn't be possible. I just don't see how they can shut it down. The whole world would have to come together.
Yeah. Do you obviously don't think, as you mentioned, we'll go fully cashless? It will still be, do you think it'll be like a 50-50? Like, obviously it'll be like an option. So there'll be the option to pay with cash or with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, whatever cryptocurrency you're using. Because it's funny, earlier on I was just thinking about this interview tonight, and I was thinking about a time when I was in the pub, and I'm sure many of us have been there, that the till breaks, or just say the power's gone down, and you always see the bar staff, they write the drinks down and they take the cash, and obviously that's how it works. So obviously if we did go full cashless, that would be that could be obviously a scenario, but you don't think we'll get to that point? You still think that they'll keep a certain amount of cash circulating?
I just don't know. I just don't understand how you would get now. I know if you look at the figures now, the amount of cash that's being used compared to card transfers, especially over the lockdown, it has rapidly, moved everything a lot faster towards that. But I don't think you'd ever be able to fully get rid of it. The problem we have now is that cash is not worth the paper it's printed on. Hence the reason why I don't want to print a paper anymore. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're going to try and move. I just don't see how they could completely get rid of old cash. Especially when there's so many companies in the world that don't even have any sort of digital assets at all anyway, just to completely get rid of it. So I don't see.
Yeah, so I suppose finally then, where do you see the future as obviously everything's just going to become decentralized, like you said, D-YouTube or was it D-Tube you called it?
D-Tube.
D-Tube. So you think everything's just going to come decentralized and it's just going to keep going and going. It's like, as I say, a third internet type thing.
It is what we're going to now. You're not going to have the blockchain now, internet, because this is what's going to start happening. We can have a whole other conversation about this, about what we're seeing happen around the world now, and how it's leading to this point where XRP falls into it, will the global transactions happen, the great rate set. You can go all into this. But yes, what we're seeing, what you do have now is a lot of smart contracts. Doing away with the third person, doing away with that middleware. If you think of a Kickstarter, this guy needs a certain amount of money in order to get the program going. These people want to donate to it, so they give it to the Kickstart person. Once they've reached a certain level, then they hand it over. Now, this person is a trust in the middle, so somebody has to trust. But what you have now is smart contracts. Smart contracts are wrote. If A equals B, then it can transfer out. It doesn't take anybody in the middle, so it's completely trustless. And once a smart contract is wrote, it can't be unchanged. It's done. It's set for stone. So you have these smart contracts now where people donate in here. Once it reaches a certain amount, it goes directly to them. You do away with a third party altogether. You don't have to pay them. They're out of the system. If it doesn't get to that level by a certain point, it goes back to those people. I see companies now that are doing it for travel agencies, for instance. Where you have one smart contract that's in the middle, you can get your flights, your car hire, everything goes through here. Whereas before, you have to go to the estate agent or the travel agent, and you'll pay them a fee for doing all this for you. So this is where it will be going to, where there'll be a lot of smart contracts set up. You see the music industry starting to do it now. Instead of using like Spotify, they'll have a smart contract set up, whereas if you put the money in here, then it releases it straight to you. And this is the difference. You don't need trust anymore. You don't need a third organization who you're paying to do this. So it will be cheaper for us in the long run as well. But yes, we are moving now to the internet of value, from the internet of information to the internet of value, and hopefully less restrictions because of the blockchain. You can't stop one. Like I just told you, took a whole country out and it's still carried on. So you take one out because all the data is on every single one of those computers. There's a record of it. So you take one out, it doesn't matter. It just carries on the rest of them anyway. So this is where we're seeing.
That's when you said earlier on, there's like, I can't remember, I think you said 10,000 servers.
Yes,
is that right?
Yeah.
Is that just people's individual computers, or is that, how does that,
Well, you can. Okay, I think it was Turkey was quite large. I could be wrong with the Turkey one, but China had a lot. Because it takes a lot of power. For instance, last year alone, the energy consumption on just producing the mining for Bitcoin was the same energy that was used to run the whole country of Argentina for a year. That's the amount of energy that's used. This is why I'm saying Bitcoin was the first. Bitcoin showed the world what you could do with cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
But the energy consumption is a major factor. So I don't see it last. It's like your Nokia phone, your first Nokia phone. You still don't have it, okay? It just showed you what you could do. Later on, they got smaller, they got more detail on it. Well, that's what you're seeing now within the cryptocurrency sphere, within the DeFi side. So yes, I do see that.
For people that might be watching this at home, do you suggest any websites or any resources you might go and learn more about this? And
yes, well, YouTube. If you Google on YouTube anything to do with blockchain, get involved in Discord, get involved in Twitter. Because there's loads of stuff on Twitter. We call it crypto Twitter. There's loads of people on there to share very good information. Follow, and then they'll lead you into other groups, Discord, where you can start to learn. There's Phoenix Capital Community, for instance. There's great guys in there that will teach you everything about hardware wallets. For instance, my money's secured. Although it's on the blockchain, anything I do, if I want to send money to you, for instance, I physically have to touch these two buttons. So nobody can actually take anything out of mine because you have to physically have this in your hand. This is my private key that allows access to my wallet, which is on the blockchain. So that's where your money's kept.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do transfer money. It shows me here what I'm sending, and do I want to send? I have to hit 2 buttons before it'll send anymore. So the guys will teach you how to do this, how to understand it. The point is, it's a community about the community. We're all the same. We're like yourself. We just want to help each other because we see how we're all being screwed, left, right, and center. And there's never been a time like now where you're going to have a humongous transfer of wealth over to the likes of us, that we can live free, immensely free. Whereas before, we literally are slave to the system. And that's all there was. Whereas now we literally have a way out. But yes,
I think it's just a lack of understanding, I think, isn't it? It's just a lot of people obviously have a lot of questions about it, and it's I have seen things on YouTube, and as you say, there is quite a few things out there. But I just wondered, were you could suggest more an in-depth look at things?
But again, too, I'd say crypto Twitter, Twitter, YouTube, the Showtime on YouTube. He's a good guy within our community. He goes through a lot of information. I can send you some stuff anyway, just for yourself, if you want to put in the developers, or put links to a few YouTube videos once I get off here. A few things, 100%. Yeah, that's no problem at all.
Yeah, I'll do that.
But yes, don't be afraid to get involved. Don't let your fear of the not understanding what you can get from what we have right now. Yes, the government's overreach is there of what they're going to try and bring in, but don't let that stop you from what you can actually gain right now. And that's the main thing, because they don't want us getting involved in this. So whatever, whatever media things we're seeing, you don't see the media people going on about, oh, look, there's 5,000 people here in this local town now are living financially free. No, you'll hear about the guy who basically lost everything. That's all you hear about. You won't hear about the hundreds of thousands that are living now nicely and not worrying about working anymore. We would, like in our group in the Finnish Community Capital, the guys are now, they've retired, a lot of them retired, they've got a nice passive income. They post their success stories about how they're supporting their local church or about how they set up money for their family. It's communities now helping their communities. We're actually helping to build more, better lives for ourselves and those around us. It's not just about greed, like the financial sector is right now. Cutthroat. We're all here for each other. So everybody within this sphere will try and give you some understanding, try and help you to understand what it is you need to do to set yourself free.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Andy, for coming on and giving us a bit of insight to cryptocurrency and the way things may be going in that field. Appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate you asking me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Andy. Thanks. Thanks for coming on. Do you agree with Andy? Let me know in the comments below. You can follow me on Twitter at ScottAnd67. Thanks for listening.